Okay. So a little bit about me, and what brings me here today to this conversation with my dear friend Liz, who I've known for a while now, and we've had a few other projects together and passions. I think it's something to do with change that occurs for a woman post-menopause. So we all know the perimenopause or the pre and during menopause period is a very intense one for women. But my experience is, I'm 62 at the moment, is that post 55 something shifts. And the closer I got to 60, I started to notice things falling away, coming away from me. And I started to notice that my relationship post 60 with my life and what I wanted changed deeply, which I didn't expect because I've been a very active, run my own business, mother of two, living in two countries, always got a good idea on the go, always wanting to manifest and create and activate some big idea. And I love that. I've got a lot of energy and I'm quite the extrovert. I've been working with executive clients for over 30 years, household names, IBM, Marks and Spencer's. So I've gotten to know the corporate world really, really well. And that's been a joy to bring people in the corporate environment back home to themselves on the inside. They're in a game because, I have a little strap line. When your inner game aligns, your outer game shines.
I like that. Very nice.
So it's memorable, but really this idea that what's going on in the inside shapes everything, is
Mm.
everything. And I've been working as a leadership development and coaching person for in this conversation. What does it take in business to have your inner game align
Mm.
so that you perform
Mm.
and envision a powerful vision that has people come on the journey with you as a leader? And yet, that has been such a it's not even a vocation. I was looking for, it's not a job. It's a vocation. It's something I've always loved to do and been a geek about and been passionate about it. And about, I don't know, I want to say something like 12 years ago, I came across something called the Inside Out Understanding, which was really profound when it came to understanding your inner game. And we'll talk more about that. And that's where we met. We met on that journey and we both came to it from very different backgrounds and yet saw something profound for ourselves, first of all, personally, and then saw that we wanted to help other people see the same
Mm.
kind of the power we have inside. And
Mm.
I think my journey too has brought me to a lot of executive women who are navigating the stages in their late 40s. Early 40s is one stage, then there's the sort of mid to late 40s, which is perimenopause. Then what now, as they navigate postmenopause, and then my peers who are in the same age as me, I see the shifts. And I think what's brought me to this conversation with you, Liz, is that I really wanted to have the conversation with someone who's past that, menopausal journey and is now looking at that, what I call the third chapter. And somebody, a grounded, wise woman who has navigated her own inner game journey and is seeing something about that and exploring that. And that's where I am too right now in my life. And I have an expression I use a lot at the moment. What got you here won't get you there. And it's like I honor the person I was, full of energy and focus and drive and possibility as a sacred time of my life. And I notice I'm in a different phase now. And it seems to be about different things. And I'm wondering if other women, when they turn 60, around 60, notice the same calling, or I call it a yearning for something.
Yeah, I know when we were discussing this podcast, you used the word yearning, and we spent a bit of time reflecting on that sort of a shift. And it's really interesting actually just to hear your story because I guess for me, I'm 57 and for the past 2 years I've been on a very much an inner journey. And just hearing what you said about post 55, I'm like, oh yes, that would fit in with my journey where I worked quite extensively for a time in the community. And again, we have, like you said, this inside out understanding is very foundational to everything I share. And so for me, it was a combination of the lockdowns during COVID. My husband had some health issues, and I just looked to my local community to share what I knew in my local community. And then we went into lockdowns. And I've spent some time exploring this work in the community through listening. I call it well-being listening. And I guess what and we ran a conference together, didn't we,
We
some
did.
time ago? And honestly, it was, I think, our personalities are so different. You are this, have this extraordinary energy, and I'm sort of slow and steady, Eddie. That's me. And I live my life in that sort of, I'm quite consistent, I'm slow, but I get there. That's me.
Mm,
And I think one of the things that I've realized since shifting my attention out of my community locally and moving my attention more towards older women, it really aligns with this inner journey I've been on, and
mm,
of course the outer journey, because earlier this year in 2025 I had this yearning, which is such a great word.
mm,
I had this yearning to go on a pilgrimage, walk
mm,
across England, following energy currents, the Michael and Mary energy currents. And it took me from Cornwall, which is in the west of England, all the way up to Norfolk, which is in the east of England. And I walked for 7 weeks, day in, day out, walking
mm,
each day. And I mean, there's so much from the pilgrimage which is still informing and I'm learning from my life. But there was something about the pilgrimage, almost like being a bridge from this journey of looking inwards. And I've come off this pilgrimage. One of the things that landed so clearly for me was the power of older women. And of
mm,
course, I put myself in this category now, which is it's unseen. It's often unacknowledged. There
mm,
are women in community, for example, that I've seen that are so that they have this strong light within them, but
mm,
they almost like put a lampshade on themselves, or they try and cover
mm,
it over because they don't want to be seen. And I feel very strongly that one of the messages I got from the pilgrimage for myself personally is this message around older women standing in authenticity, taking up space,
mm,
taking up their space, and expressing themselves in the world. And this is my journey, and I guess I'm curious if that links in with other women
mm,
as well on their journey in older life.
mm. Well, um, I think what we give voice to begins to shift as well. So in addition to this sense of we have something to offer, but maybe we're not expressing it, I've also noticed that I'm thinking of of a quote. I'm going to get it wrong, but it's basically something like this Archbishop of Canterbury on his gravestone from the Middle Ages, something like this. When I was young, I wanted to change the world. And then I realized that was too hard. So then I wanted to change my country. And then I realized that was beyond me. So I decided I wanted to change my village. And then and then I realized that was also too big. So I decided I'm going to change my family. Well, we all know how that works out. So he was left with, in the end, it was only myself I can change. And I think that that is what I've noticed in my own journey, that in terms of giving voice to something, I was always very much on the change the world spectrum. And I now notice at this age, I'm content with just what is for me, what is my work, the inner game stuff we've talked about, the inner pilgrimage, we could even say, or the external pilgrimage. And then what that gives voice to is for me to speak.
Mm.
So I think that's probably every woman's journey at this stage. And I think it's important and crucial that we speak it. So whether or not we feel up to speaking about it, I think it's, oh, I feel emotional now because I get these tingles it's like I receive divine information. It's the medicine the world needs right now, and it's urgent.
Yes. And you know what's really interesting in what you say is going back to the pilgrimage, there are two energy currents which are Michael and Mary. So they're seen to be a male and female energy current. And one of the things I really noticed from the pilgrimage was this sense of balance.
Mm,
And I know this is an area for you that you've looked into much more than I have. Maybe I'm at the early stages of this, but the feminine energy, the female
hmm
energy.
mm,
And one of the things I noticed about the energy currents is they cross over. So there
hmm
are points where they cross over. They're called node points.
mm,
And often they're seen as very sacred places like Glastonbury and
mm,
Avebury. But it's there's something sacred about these energy currents. And for me, there feels something sacred about this space of the older woman, which is
mm.
kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
We don't really, at least I don't really have anybody in my culture, unless I go searching very hard,
Mm,
that represents this stage of older womanhood in a positive way, in
mm,
a way where society acknowledges older women.
mm,
And so I'm really curious. You've been on this journey a bit longer than me, and I know you've
mm.
explored it a bit longer than I have. But I know you have got inspiration from different areas around
Yes.
this female energy, and I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Oh, thank you. My favorite topic. I think that's why we're here, Liz. Thank you for asking
Yes.
me. I would say, I want to say something like 55. So around 55, I started to awaken to the notion of feminine and masculine energies. Now, that's not new. In fact, it's probably been there from before the dawn of time. These energies, if you think of them as spiritual energies, but they are fundamental to all life, as we know. There's an egg and a sperm, they come together, they make life, they're masculine, feminine energies. And I realized around age 55 that I had lived in a masculine way in business as a woman. Even though I have two children, I did all the things. It's something called attachment parenting, which is a very feminine approach to parenting. And I did a lot of feminine things. I loved getting my nails done. And, I was quite a feminine person, but I had operated in a masculine way. And what I see now about that is that's because the world of business is a masculine environment. And what I mean by that is I don't mean male, I mean the values of the masculine, which is the world of form, achievement, goals, make things happen, get it done, structure, order, process, the bottom line. These are all words you'll hear a lot in business. And so, what is valued is that kind of way of being. And by the way, that is crucial and necessary. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I realized is I had inadvertently adopted those values from really a young age. I kind of started working in the 80s in IBM. And that was the world I operated in. And I didn't even know it could be any different. And it was the 80s. So big shoulder pads, big suits. It was like power dressing. It was called power dressing. So there was this power energy, and it was a masculine energy. And then around 55, I started to realize, and this is quite sad, really, what it had cost me. And what it had cost me is, for me personally, being in my feminine energy. And what that looks like to me now is flow. It's more chaotic. It's not requiring order. It's more mystical. It's more spiritual, you could even say. It's the formless realm, that which we can't put in a box and measure, and yet we know. and most of all, our capacity to create. Now, all men and women can create because we have both energies, but this feeling of being really deeply connected to one's feminine energy is the capacity to create ideas, to receive divine inspiration, and to flow with them. And I noticed that I'd operated in a world where I had put order on top of whatever idea I had very quickly. And I hadn't allowed myself to flow because the bottom line. So that was my first taste, and my first experience of it was sadness because I realized I had sacrificed something in order to be, in my case, I was the provider in the family. And that took me on a deep journey to really learn to respect, understand, value, and honor the feminine within and the feminine in general. And so I did a lot of study into it. And I have a number of different teachers, but I feel like that's quite a lot I've said there. So what I'm interested to hear from you is what you've noticed around your journey with masculine and feminine through the pilgrimage, maybe, because that seems like a good entry point.
Yeah, well, I think what you were saying there really resonated as you were speaking, which is this idea of flow, this idea of connection to the spiritual, to feeling. There are so many of my friends who are women who we can communicate with each other by saying, yeah, I just, it doesn't feel right. And we don't need to go to ask like intellectually, well, what do you mean? We go, okay, well, I would trust that spidey sense of yours. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. Don't go there. Whereas I notice that often when I'm out speaking, people want a story. So, for example, I think the pilgrimage is a really great example because for me, I have shifted much more into trusting intuition and wisdom.
Mm,
And of course, in the world of business, as you describe it, I know that's your world, but that's not really something that's understood, or there isn't a vocabulary for
mm-hmm,
that.
mm,
But the truth is, I trust my intuition and wisdom. And when it came to walking the pilgrimage, it made no sense for me to do it. Financially, it made no sense. At the time, my dad was alive when I started to plan it. I was helping to care for my dad. I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen with my caring responsibilities, but I continued to plan it. It meant that I closed down my social enterprise. It meant that I was not actively looking for clients because I wasn't going to be able to be with them over this period. It was going to be, I didn't want to have any work calls. I didn't want to accommodate anybody else. It was my time. And people asked me and still ask me, why did you walk this pilgrimage? And I could come up with some stories that would satisfy
mm,
that intellectual
mm-hmm,
way of being. So, for example, my dad passed away last year, and I know it would be a very acceptable story to say, well, my dad passed away and I just wanted some time on my own and processing grief. And that went on during the pilgrimage, but that wasn't why I did it. The reason I did it is there was something I listened to quite compelling in me that wanted to be expressed. And as I was walking the pilgrimage, I realized that I wasn't walking a pilgrimage. This wasn't little Liz walking a pilgrimage. There was the spirit of a pilgrimage that wanted to be walked through me.
mm,
Now, that, try explaining that to people. It's not the language we speak. And yet for me, that felt more true. I
mm,
didn't walk a pilgrimage. And it wasn't like I was chosen in a special way. It because somebody said, "Oh, that's nice." So you were like you were chosen. I was like, "No, no." It just wanted to be expressed through me. And I
mm,
know that musicians and artists
mm,
often use that as a metaphor, and I really understand that now.
mm,
Is that something is being created through me?
mm,
So I really hear what you're saying about this space of touching that which is not in the world of form.
mm.
And for me, that is the balance that I feel I am able to contribute,
Mm,
which is offering something that is not dismissing the world of form, but is in balance or helps to
mm,
balance the world of form.
I love
Yeah.
that. Uh, what I'd love to build on is this deep and profound respect for that world of the formless realm, and what I've seen about that through my really the last 7 years. And what I've seen is it's blinded me with the light. I don't know, blinded by the light. And I couldn't quite believe it. But I know it's true. It's one of those knowing. You can't convince me otherwise. And it is simply this: the feminine goes first. It looks like we live in a masculine world where the masculine decides everything. The feminine goes first energetically with a receptivity to exactly what you just said, the divine wanting to be experienced. And the feminine goes first with a desire, not an intellectual desire, an embodied desire of knowing what is right and good for them and for the whole, the whole that they serve, their family, their community, their business, their country, whatever the environment is. The feminine is energy within us, receives divine inspiration as a vision for what will serve the whole. And it is at the heart of the feminine energetic to do so. And it doesn't come from logic, it comes from a deep embodied knowing. And the feminine then, if she gives voice to it, then it has a chance to be manifested in the world of form. And the feminine energetic then invites, with a little wink, the masculine to make it so. Now, that can be within you, or it can be an actual, if you're a female, I'd really love a garden with maybe a pergola in it. That would be so nice in the summer. And the masculine's like, right, I'm building that pergola, the actual masculine environment around you. Or you find the person that wants to play with you. So this dance, this crossing over of the lines, as you said, is a constant. It's just not one and one. It's the feminine desire, and then the masculine provides, and then the feminine comes back in, and then the masculine makes it, says boundaries. This needs to be has these boundaries, and it just continues like that with us within ourselves, but also with other humans. And so I've really seen that it is the role of the feminine energy to go first. And I think it even is biological. There's a there's an energy of the feminine that invites the masculine. The door is open. That has to happen first. Now, obviously, we know that doesn't always go that way, but that is the healthy way of the system. The feminine goes, I'm receptive. That's the territory of the feminine, to receive that which is other, not just the world of form, to receive. And so I really started to respect that, because the masculine energy is active and providing, and the feminine is receptive and desiring. And I started to see that at the post 55, we have skills, experience, knowledge. We've suffered. I really feel my suffering right now. We've suffered, we've had pain, and we've suffered. And it's hollowed us out, and it's brought us back. And I know you've had your own, and I'll pass the baton to you in the last year. There's a sense of falling away when you really experience pain. There's a sense of falling away, what's not so important, because you're in the slings and arrows of life, and you can only meet that, and everything else is sort of irrelevant. Whether or not you get your nails done, for example, it's things fall away that are not really at the heart of things. So you have, as a result of that, compassion and wisdom. And I would say I started to realize this was true. Every person, male or female, and especially male, when the chips are down, will look for the wisest woman they know to talk to. because of the intuition, because of the connection, because of the compassion, because of the wisdom, and because they will tell you the truth, because they're not attached anymore to what other people think or to getting a mate or any of the other things we might be attached to when we're younger. There's a sense of authenticity and grace that a wise woman, a grandmother, you could say, or someone of a grandmother's age, brings to the tribe that is crucial. So I'd love to hear what you heard in that you can relate to or that you've seen for yourself, Liz.
I guess the one of the things that occurred to me as you were speaking about masculine and feminine energy is I I see that they both exist within this entity
Yes.
that's called Liz, and I think that's probably important to say that this isn't about saying if you're biologically female, that you have feminine energy. If you're biologically man, you have male energy,
That's
and
it.
we're saying that these energies exist within everybody, and I think that's really important to say. And I think the the bit that really struck me, and I was like, oh yeah, that I really see that, was when you were saying about the feminine energy going first or in front or whatever the language was you used that. And certainly for me, I before I had the language of masculine energy and feminine energy, and I have to say I have a little bit of a I almost don't like using the words
Yeah.
because they've got connotations that people will potentially misinterpret. But just for the
Mm-hmm.
sake of this conversation, when I was looking at listening and I explored in my community something called well-being listening, and this was about really supporting people seeing the well-being in another person, seeing the well-being in themselves and listening out for that. That's essentially what well-being listening is all about. I really saw that the the insights or the knowing or the intuition and the wisdom that comes with that kind of listening leads before the intellect.
Yeah.
So something I remember once it was during lockdown, so I was doing a demonstration on Zoom of this of well-being listening with a group. And I remember that the person I was listening to, she had some pot plants in the background. Now, I was listening to what she was saying, but there was something within me that had me say, and again, it wasn't me being clever. It wasn't me thinking, oh, this is a good idea. I must ask this. Something came through, which I say
Mm.
is like that wisdom, that female energy.
Mm.
And I pointed out her pot plants, and I don't even remember what I said. But what happened with her is she fell into a place of well-being as she recalled how much she loved her plants.
Mm.
Like it was now the feminine energy as we're talking about it, and I maybe use the language of wisdom and intuition,
Mm.
is that that's fresh every time it comes through.
Mm.
But so it's not that the people who were observing this demonstration, it's not that when you listen to somebody and if they've got a plant in the background, you point out the plant, like, oh, yes, what Liz did is she mentioned the plants. Next time when I listen to someone, I must mention the plants. For me, that's the intellect. Sorry,
Mm.
that's the intellect leading. And it doesn't work like that.
Mm.
And we've lived in a topsy-turvy world where we've
Mm.
tried to put form to this well of intuition and wisdom that's
Mm.
forever creatively coming into play.
Mhm.
And we try to capture it,
Mm.
and you don't need to.
Mm.
It's the opposite. The intellect, which is this masculine style of energy,
Mm.
it gives language to the form, to this
Mm.
formless energy that's coming through. It gives form, it gives words,
Mm.
but actually it's in service of, even within
Mm.
ourselves, that
Mm.
intuition, that wisdom. And I've noticed that so much more as an older woman. Does that resonate for
That
you?
totally makes sense. And I'd love to give a short example that completely illuminates this for me and really illustrates it. We've all been to restaurants. We've been to 100, maybe 100 restaurants, or more in our lifetime. And the process is similar. They greet you, they seat you, they give you a menu, they ask for a drink, you get your food, you order, you get your food, they clear your plates, you leave, you get the bill, you leave, right? The process is pretty consistent. But
Mm.
the feeling, right from the ambience, they call it, when you walk into the room, the way you are greeted, and how your waitress can even say all the right things, but still you feel they're not there. And then a waitress can or waiter can say the wrong things, but you feel they're with you. Or get them even make mistakes and get the process wrong, bring you the wrong thing, but the way they are, and this is the quality that we're talking about, this ineffable element that is beyond process, beyond the intellect, beyond the order, and it's actually how humans it's and we need and a bird cannot fly with one wing. It's not one is better than the other. It's just I sense that this feminine energy that's within us all, like you say, it's not the domain of gender. I mean, really, phenotypical gender is not what we're talking about. Let's just take that off the table. That's a whole other thing. That's not what this is. This is the energy which we all have. It's oriented to service and love and connection and creation. What will work for everyone. And I feel like, oh, this is again, I feel the emotion rising in me as I receive this divine message. At the age we are, post 55, it's time. It's time for us to use our voices to advocate for what we know in our bones. It's time to bring more compassion to the other in this deeply partisan world we live in, where seems to be a right and a wrong side to be on all the time.
Mm.
But it's not true. It's not true. And I'm sure anybody who's listening to us, Liz, will have found themselves on the other side in the last 5 years than they expected to be with close friends on a certain subject. And I'm not even going to list them. We know that what the polarizing subjects have been of the last 5 years. And I myself has found myself literally my best friend and I had oppositional views on a particular matter that was so deep, it was threatening the relationship. And you know what we did? Because we love each other. We said, we are not going to agree, but love wins. That's what the older woman can do, can rise to compassion. Let me understand you and let us love each other anyway. We don't have to agree intellectually. And then of course the third element is this our capacity for wisdom to be the leader, the guide, as you say, fresh in the moment. And this is what is needed in every setting, in the family setting, in the community setting, in the business setting, and definitely in the global leader setting. So, or the governance setting. So, so the voice of the older woman and what she's seen and what she knows needs, I think, expression, encouragement, and honoring.
Mm.
Oh, I'm glad I got that out, Liz.
Yeah, no, and acknowledgement. I would add that to your list there
Yes.
because I think, and I hear it, and I love what you've just said. It just feels to me as though I want to share with older women, and I would love older women to start to trust what they know to be true
Yes.
and to express themselves in a way that feels authentic to them in the world. And when I use the term take up space, take up your space, take up our
Yeah.
space as older women,
Yeah.
for me, it feels as though we've habitually and society has wanted older women to sort of to shrink back
Mm.
rather than to step forward. And this isn't about getting your elbows out and taking up
Mm.
anybody else's space.
Mm.
This is about women taking up their space. And I think what you just said there, and it just struck me, is that if you know, if there's someone watching or listening to this where this resonates, it's like this is for you to trust that which is coming through you. Don't try and dismiss it. Don't try and intellectualize it. Don't try
Mm,
and put form to it. It's almost like just get used to feeling it and trusting it in yourself.
mm,
Because for me, this is about, and you've said it in a couple of times, and I just want to say it in maybe my way, but I think it's exactly the same as what you're saying, is that that very sense that you're feeling, if you are feeling this and you're listening to this, of this wisdom coming through you, is exactly what the world needs. And
mm.
we're not saying to change the whole world, a bit
Yeah.
like you said about that quote on the gravestone,
Yeah.
not even the community, not even your
Mm,
family.
mm,
This is about you honoring yourself and what it is
mm,
you are in the world.
mm,
And if it feels appropriate, giving form to that wisdom that is intuition, that feminine energy,
mm,
whatever the languages we use for it, that
mm,
you have a real sensitivity to, because that's the stage of your life you're in. And that is
mm,
the gift that
mm,
you've got. And we want you to really enjoy that gift.
mm. I'm going to have to find the actual research, but I know that Dr. Christina Northrup wrote a book called The Wisdom of Menopause, and one of the pieces in there, she talks about intuition and wisdom at this stage of life. And they've done some kind of study which is an exponential increase in women's intuition post-menopause. And it's like almost in the design, our design. We're designed to have those mystical knowings and give them voice. And traditionally, before the Western world model took over, we lived in tribes, and the wise women were sacred guides that people came to and sat with, and they midwife people through birth and death, and they were the healers and the people that knew the lineage of herbs, and they were highly skilled in whatever their pastime was, and so they were always sought out as advisors. And the grandmothers are the ones that hold the glue, you could say. And so, yes, it's time, I feel, for us to encourage ourselves and other women of our stage and age to be that, to listen to their own guidance and to give it voice. And I don't think there could be anything more loving, helpful, and self nourishing and nourishing for others at this
Mm,
stage of life than to do that.
beautiful. And for me, that's what this podcast is all about. In different ways, exploring this intuition, this wisdom, this energy that our Western culture has tried to quash or put down. And I think I really want to make the point here. This is not about right or wrong
No.
or saying that, men are bad or bloody. It's like that's not this conversation. We've all been hoodwinked, men and women, for millennia, and it's the time is now to open our eyes to a different way and to own it and
Mm,
to step into it and to
mm,
allow, going right back to what you said at the beginning, to allow the flow of this. So that's what I feel quite inspired by
mm,
this podcast to explore. And I know that's the themes that we'll be playing with
mm,
moving forward.
mm.